What is the most painful horror game you've ever played? Usually when we talk about pain in games, we mean a brutal boss or a cheap jump scare. But what defines a painful game? Is it the gameplay loop making you suffer? Or maybe the emotional toll of the story? Well, for Harry Mason, it's a lot deeper than that. And that's why Silent Hill 1 is the most painful entry in the series to me. And that's because of a perfect storm of clunky gameplay in a town put together with glue and duct tape, and a story that even now I feel sort of confused by. And to understand why this is the case, we're gonna have to look at the exact moment that Harry Mason's nightmare began. This is Harry Mason, and upon waking up, he finds that his daughter is now gone, and he's crashed his car. He is currently in the town of Silent Hill.
Cheryl, where could you be? It's strange. It's quiet. Too quiet. This place is like a ghost town.
And he's right, because we have entered Silent Hill. Right away, the old school PlayStation 1 graphics will stand out to you because the game has, well, not necessarily aged well when you compare to the more recent entries, but the ominous feeling that you get from Silent Hill, well, this is where it started. We also hear something in the distance, some form of footsteps. If we follow them, we will find a person in the mist.
Cheryl? Is that Cheryl?
Unfortunately, the little bastard decides to run away, so we have to keep looking for her.
Where are you going? Hey, wait! Stop!
If we follow her down into this alley, we'll notice that she again disappears. We'll see a sign saying beware of dogs, but on the other side, we'll find a body or something. It's bloody and messy, there's guts on the floor. Of course, Harry Mason just wonders what it is. I mean, I'm pretty clear what it is. It's meat. But I digress. If we continue down the alleyway, we will notice the camera angles shifting very, very heavily. And this is one of the best aspects of these games, because you have these tank controls which make you move around like an actual tank, because you have to move only in one direction at a time. It does allow them to use camera angles to specifically show you what they want to show you, but also make everything feel a little bit eerie and off-putting. They're using what's called a Dutch angle, basically tilting the camera in certain ways to make you feel like something isn't right, like there's something wrong with the image. And we see that constantly here. However, now something has changed. Things have gotten suddenly darker, the area sounds different, everything, the entire ambiance changed all of a sudden. It was daytime just a moment ago. We find a broken wheelchair, but it doesn't end there. We find a body, and now the alleyways are filled with these metallic, rustic-looking things. What happened? Well, eventually we find something else.
What is this? What's going on here?
What is going on here, we do not know, but suddenly we get bum-rushed by our first enemy type, the Grey Children. So these are the Grey Children, and the thing about these guys is that they are an enemy type that is different depending on which version of the games you've actually played and whether it's a demo or not. See, in certain versions around the world, these things had to be changed into just outright the Mumbler, which is another type of enemy we're going to talk about later because we will encounter that too. However, the Grey Children specifically had to be changed because originally the design looked far more like a regular child monster. And for obvious reasons, because there are censors and stuff, they were not allowed to keep that because having the character shooting a bunch of kids does not really seem like the most optimal thing in the world. As for them as an enemy type, they are kind of annoying. The first thing you'll notice is they will constantly lunge at you, and they have knives so they can shank you as if you're in Birmingham. Their meaning and what they mean in the context of the story is something I will explain a bit later because it does spoil a few things if I explain it now. But wait, little lad, the Grey Children are not the only enemy we're going to talk about today, right? Coming in for Big Chief? Yeah, I'm talking about Ozilda, the Wicked Witch's unseen prodigy in Raid. I mean, tell me more. Yeah, years after Dorothy, Gale, and her dog Toto, her friends the Scarecrow, the Tin Woodman, and the Cowardly Lion all defeated the Wicked Witch, well, her unseen protege, Ozilda, is an enemy that you can take down, because she's been quietly plotting her revenge, and now she's drawing in Dorothy's scattered friends one by one into a parallel version of Teleria, where she has almost all control. So you can actually claim the brand new legendary champion Dorothy Gale for free by logging in for 7 days during the Dorothy Gale chase. If you keep logging in between August 19th and November 19th, you can keep logging in and also getting another 7 days of rewards where you get extra gear and upgrades for Dorothy Gale. But why is she so good? Yeah, good question, lad. Why would Dorothy Gale be a must-have legendary? Well, she can remove enemy buffs while applying valuable debuffs, also disrupting enemy strategies across every game mode. She locks down with CC effect, so crowd control, giving your team the breathing room to execute their own plays. And she empowers even further the more of the Friends from Oz characters that are on your team. And as a part of the Echoes of Oz event in Raid, you can of course take on Ozilda the Wicked Witch. She is the enemy here as the dungeon boss in a limited time event dungeon to earn chronophage gear and other valuable rewards. And of course, Raid, unlike Silent Hill, has multiple different game modes and ways of playing. And with an endless amount of content, they keep adding new stuff all the time for you to enjoy. And the best part for someone like myself who's out and about and also working at the computer all day, the fact that it's multi-platform, the game is on mobile and PC, allows someone like myself to be able to constantly play on the run. And of course, the game just looks beautiful, like it has AAA graphics. So if you haven't started playing yet, what are you waiting for? If you click my link in the description or scan my QR code, you can get amazing bonuses available via my link only. Right now, you can get 3 free legendary champions and 1 free epic. Instantly unlock a huge starter pack with an insane legendary champion, Narma the Returned. And speaking of Narma, I mean, she looks like a goth queen, if you know what I mean. But you can get another legendary champion for free by using one of the following promo codes on the screen right now. Using one of these codes, you could get Alice the Wanderer, Cheshire Cat, Pelops the Victor, and Grand Oak Padrage. I would choose the Cheshire Cat because, again, I like mischievous characters and this thing looks mischievous as hell. These champions are available in the game after downloading via my custom link or QR code only, and you get them within 48 hours after downloading with my link. And of course, don't forget to log in for 7 days to get the legendary champion Dorothy Gale for free. Additionally, if you reach level 15, you can get an amazing epic champion, Chonoru from the Shadowkin faction. She is a multi-skilled character with a lot of speed and momentum. So you can get 3 legendary champions, 1 epic champion, and much more, all by using my link or QR code on screen. And it's an amazing way to start your account, and using my link also helps support me and my channel. So thank you so much. I appreciate you guys, and thank you to Raid as well. Unfortunately for me, I have no way of defending myself against these guys, and so I die. We wake up inside of a diner, and clearly somebody's inside of here with us. Harry looks up and he sees a new person.
Was I dreaming?
How do you feel?
Oh, like I've been run over by a truck. But I'm alright, I guess.
This is Sybil Bennett. She's actually a police officer from a nearby town right next to Silent Hill called Brahms. It's a town that comes up in future games too, but she's from there and she was sent specifically to Silent Hill to figure out why there was a lack of communication between her precinct and the Silent Hill one.
The phones are all dead, and the radio too. I'm going back to call in some reinforcements.
Frankly, she's a cool character, but she also kind of hands us a weapon, which seems a little irresponsible.
Now listen to me. Before you pull the trigger, know who you're shooting.
I mean, her saying that seems a little foreboding, but I will ignore that for now. I do actually like that there is a bit of a backstory to Sybil, which you don't see in the game, unfortunately, but I can tell you about it because there's an entire novel that goes into this. But apparently Sybil's backstory is that she, as a child, witnessed both her parents being murdered by an unidentified man. She hid inside of a closet and peered through to witness them being shot by this stranger. And because of this happening, it led her to want to become a police officer to make sure she could dish out justice, which also makes her into a really strong character, but then sending her into Silent Hill seems like the worst thing that could have happened to her. With Sybil heading back to Brahms to get reinforcements, we pick up a bunch of items inside of the diner before checking out the radio. It seems to not be working, but on the way outside, suddenly it makes noise. And before you know it...
Huh. Radio. What's going on with that radio?
This is another enemy, the Screamer. By far, I would say the worst enemy in this game in terms of just how annoying they are and how frequently they will make your life miserable. Now, luckily, I'm playing this on easy mode, so it doesn't really matter, but on higher difficulties, they're extremely difficult and will kill you very easily just because of their range and because they can literally fly. But if we use the pistol we were given by Sybil, we can aim, fire, and kill this thing. In doing so, we now are able to pick up the radio, which will essentially function like a warning signal. Every time an enemy is close by or in the direction, the radio will go off. Now, I like that this is in here because it's a feature that I enjoy. It's ominous and sets a tone because radio static can be off-putting. But now that we are outside, we should be heading back to the exact same street where we originally saw Cheryl, which was the alleyway. But instead of that, I actually check the alleyway right outside of the diner instead, and I find this one area where there is a key, but also what looks to be the head of a dog. If we observe, there is a basketball hoop, and we can see that there's blood on it, almost as if somebody was playing basketball with the head of this dog. It's frankly disturbing. But if we take the key, we can now leave this area and head towards the alley we originally were meant to go to. And this is where something interesting happens. Yet another ambush and yet another enemy introduction. This is the Groaner. Of course, there has to be a dog enemy. It is the original Silent Hill, of course. And these guys are called Groaners because they make a groaning sound. But it's kind of funny because this door right here that we saw when we first came to the alley said, "Beware of dogs." That was foreshadowing these guys. And of course, because they are dogs, they're very fast, so ideally running away or just shooting them is the best option in this scenario. However, heading back into the alley this time, we go to the exact same spot we were earlier, but a local American decided to drop some handgun ammo, which was not here previously, and the pathway gets now blocked off, but there is something on the ground. There's a note that says "to school," and it almost looks like it's written in blood.
Isn't this Cheryl's sketchbook? She's at the school.
Well, we know our next direction. The school is the Midwich Elementary School, located in the southwest of the Silent Hill town, but it's not the only thing we find here. There's also a metal pipe on the ground which we can pick up, which is going to be our probably most efficient weapon for now, as well as another note, but this time it's a sketchbook belonging to Cheryl. It's a sketchbook that she got on her 5th birthday. So, a bit depressing to find this here, but we know that she should be at the school, so that's where we're gonna head to next. But getting there is a little bit harder than you'd think. See, Silent Hill is the kind of game where you have to look around and explore quite a bit to find what you seek. In this case, we have to look around and eventually run across a note. This note says to go to the doghouse at 11th Street. If we find the doghouse, it's gonna be surrounded by a few groaners, but taking them down, we get a key to the house. Inside, there is some ammo, just like any God-fearing American would have in their home, and naturally, we make sure to save our game using the notepad. Then we check the map here, which has a few interesting things on it. It gives us a general destination for where to find the Eclipse key, which I guess is not the key we need, because we already have one of them, which is from the Woodsman, but we're missing a third one. So, we're gonna have to hunt for those real quick too. Going back onto the streets of Silent Hill, it is eerie. Keep in mind, this is an old game, but even still, I kind of felt the tension as I was playing. The constant sound of the radio, the ringing noise, it does sort of put you on edge as you're playing because the groaners can be really annoying. The sound they make can be a little jarring at times, but eventually I run across what I could only call a 7-Eleven, where we find a few items before eventually on the bridge in the back of a police car, we find yet another key. This is the lion's key, and then finally, I don't know how this is here, but we have to cross this one weird ledge to get the scarecrow key. With both of these in our hands, we can now open the door and exit into the backyard.
What? It's getting dark again. What's going on?
Once more, we seem to be entering the other world. We have yet to speak about it much, but this happened earlier in the alleyway too, when suddenly everything goes dark and we enter almost like a parallel version of Silent Hill. This place is darker, it literally looks different, and it feels much more grim. Like a nightmare version of what we're used to, but outside in the alleyway, there is multiple bloodstains. Again, I don't really want to know what's behind this door. The added darkness does make traversal a little bit harder, but luckily we can always just pull our map up to check where we're going. But we are getting now closer to the school, and eventually we find it. Welcome to Midwich Elementary. We get a map of the school, but this is arguably one of the most terrifying locations in this game. There's a list and different kinds of notes we can take a look at, and they're all written in blood. This one starts with a riddle.
10 o'clock, Alchemy Laboratory. Gold is an old man's palm, the future hidden in his fist, exchange for sage's water. But there's another note.
This one also covered in blood.
5 o'clock, darkness that brings the choking heat. Flames rendered the silence, awakening the hungry beast. Open time's door to beck and pray.
And the last one looks like some sort of geography book. There's pictures of little mountains, but this one says
12 o'clock, a place with songs and sound. A silver guidepost is untapped and lost tongues, awakening at an ordained order.
So this is clearly a puzzle. We all know how these work in Silent Hill games. If you don't, usually these are riddles that set us up to figure out a sort of puzzle to solve. There's also a back room where we find this bizarre painting, or whatever you want to call it, that shows some kind of door and two hanged men. It's off-putting. And frankly speaking, I think this school is eerier and creepier than even the one from Silent Hill F. Entering the courtyard, for example, we can find a giant tower with a clock on it that's specifically stopped at 10. This is probably related to the riddle from earlier about 10 o'clock. There's also specifically 2 items we need to insert here, but before you know it, I'm getting bum rushed by yet another gray enemy. These things are really annoying, and here is also where the combat is far more obvious, right? Because I'm not using as many bullets, I'm trying to conserve them, but Silent Hill is not a franchise that's known to have very good combat. It's extremely clunky. It was clunky back then, and it's still kind of clunky today. I do think that Silent Hill F, for example, did sort of do better combat, obviously, because it's newer, but they intentionally try to make it a little bit clunkier just to get that same feeling across. But there is something very specific about Silent Hill 1 and its level of clunkiness. You can just not replicate how it feels, which is also where the game can feel a little bit painful to play at times because of just how much it sort of works against you. It feels difficult and painful to play through, but that's also part of the charm. It is essentially what makes the experience more rewarding when you do actually survive all these enemies. And on hard mode, it's way much more of a challenge. But again, the pain sometimes makes it more enjoyable. It's kind of like enjoying like a spicy sauce on your food. Sure, does it burn a bit? But yeah, that kick is kind of what you want. We do also find and encounter yet another enemy type. This time it's the larval stalkers. Now these things are like translucent looking little ghosts, and they will disappear. This form of them is not dangerous, they will not damage us, but there's another version of them that we can find later in the game which are far worse to deal with. Further exploration yields some useful things, like for example, some chemicals. We can use these on a hand that we found. We can put the chemicals on there and burn the hand away to reveal a medallion. I don't know exactly the logic and how these chemicals can burn an entire hand away, but I will not get into the details. However, with the medallion, we should now be able to at least open part of the clock tower door, but I do some further actual exploration, like the locker room, which is mostly empty, but we also find a strange piano music room containing a blood-scribbled note on the wall. It's yet another riddle.
A tale of birds without a voice. First flew the greedy pelican, eager for the reward, white wings flailing. Then came the silent dove, flying beyond the pelican, as far as he could. A raven flies in, flying higher than the dove, just to show that he can. A swan glides in to find a peaceful spot next to the another bird. Finally, out comes a crow, coming quickly to a stop, yawning and then napping. Who will show the way? Who will be the key? Who will lead to the silver reward?
So clearly this is a riddle that we need to solve to be able to get access to yet another pendant or medallion, because we found a gold medallion, but the other one that's missing is a silver one. There's a mention of silver in the puzzle, but unfortunately, the actual piano is inaccessible to us. We can seemingly not open it at the moment. But for now, we go downstairs, we use the gold medallion, a noise is made and the clock shifts to 12 instead of 10 o'clock, just like the original note we found at the front desk. Back upstairs, and suddenly the piano is now different. It's opened. If we observe it, we can actually click the buttons. But to solve it, we need to look at the riddle itself. It talks about different birds and the order at which they all essentially arrive, and which order and where they are. This gives us an idea of which one of these buttons to press, because the different birds, like for example the crow being black, relates probably to one of the black keys on the piano. The white birds, depending on how they look and how they're described in here and their position, also tells us positionally where to do them. But I'm gonna be honest, these puzzles are incredibly hard. If I had to do this as a child, there's no way I would have been able to solve it. And even now, I still had to refer to a guide when I was completely lost in some of these puzzles. I think most people do have to do that. Not really strong when it comes to puzzles, so it's one of those things that, again, it's very painful if you play these games without any sort of direction, and especially when I was younger, it was impossible. But for now, though, we solve the puzzle and get access to one of the keys. This is the silver medallion, which is going to be needed downstairs. So we take it, we insert it into the, well, clock tower, but it's not enough. We still need to do one more thing before we can enter to the other side, and that being room down into the creepy basement. It's a spooky area, but if we turn the generator on, now everything is sorted. So if we open the door at the clock tower, we go through, but on the other side, we're back at the school again, which makes no sense. And that's because we've yet again entered the other world. And we know this is the other world specifically because of the dark outside. This is what it looks like. It's decaying, it's dark, it's ominous, and on the ground we find a symbol, one that was not here before. It's an occult one that some of you might recognize. The whole thing with the other world as well is that if we enter the school itself, now it's all metallic and rusted. It looks like it's been going through hell, and the other world itself is a strange thing because it's the manifestation of a more dark and sinister version of the regular town. It's as if the town is able to, in some mysterious way, manifest this place through strange ancient ways. But the main thing is that we're now stuck inside of this shithole and we gotta figure out what to do. We can find a tiny red ball which will come into use for later, and the further exploration we find like a punch card looking thing that has a key design on it. This is useful to open a specific door. If you guys remember, there was one area inside of the school which was in the back room where there was two bodies on a painting. Well, now those actually physically appear in the space and we can use the punch card to get to the other side. But one issue though, if we cross to the other side, I didn't know this, but if we enter the only two rooms in front of us that we instantly see, which is the girls' and boys' bathrooms, if we go in there, they actually teleport us to opposite versions upstairs where the doors are blocked off. It's like a weird teleporter, and I did not know this, so I got stuck here for a while, completely lost. Again, as much as I love these games, they are old and sometimes confusing, and things aren't always clear, but that's not a bad thing. It does force you to sort of pay more attention. And in this case, well, I got punished for not paying attention. In the nightmare version of the school, we also encounter a new enemy type, which is the creeper. These are like little cockroach, like, I don't even know what else to call them, looking bugs that will hunt you. It's just kind of funny. I never realized that they were in Silent Hill 1. I always assumed they were something that was added into Silent Hill Homecoming, which is something I frankly hated about that game. And they're not fun to deal with here either. They're just annoying. But inside one of the rooms, though, there's a bunch of these telephones, and we cannot really do much with them, except when we try to leave, one of them starts to ring.
Daddy? Help me. Daddy? Where are you?
Cheryl!
That was Cheryl's voice. I know it. Where is she? Cheryl.
That was Cheryl's voice that Harry heard. The thing though is, where is it coming from? It's very, like, horror-esque to have something like that happen, but there is no explanation as to where it came from. Instead, we can keep exploring the school, but I do notice that we found some shotgun shells. This is a good indication that we will be finding a shotgun to use at some time soon, but over in this hallway, I notice a body hanging. This is grim. I mean, this is a game that came out in 1999, and games weren't really doing these kinds of things back then, so it's kind of intriguing to see this. But we have more things to find. Back into the locker room, originally there was nothing here, but now one of the lockers is shaking. If we open it, it goes silent. Inside, there is nothing. It's a creepy moment, but whatever. So when we leave, it's a body covered in bandages, almost as if the body had been burnt or damaged by something. You can pick up a key from here, which is to the library reserve. With this, we'll be able to actually enter that area of the map. I think what really helps sell the idea of a school being so creepy is because every one of us has been to school. Every one of us has experienced school in different ways, but I think we can all agree that we've all had both negative and positive emotions associated to it. Maybe negative emotions in failing during a class, maybe negative emotions in being bullied, maybe negative emotions in any other kind of way. School is a place where a lot of things happen and where your formative years are made. And it doesn't then shock me that it's used as the basis in so many games as a place of horror, because so many emotions are attached to a school, and every different person's interpretation of that experience leaves them feeling certain ways about it. The school is a nightmare because that's what it's being interpreted by. The school is a nightmare because that's what the town has turned it into. It is a place of horrors and not one of education, friendship, and happiness. But for the time being, we've entered the rooftop of the school. We can find a key in one of the little holes here, but the problem is we can't really reach it. So to get access to it, we use the ball to clog one of the pipes and then let some rainwater in, which pushes the key down to the lower floors. What we then find down in the courtyard is a classroom key. Using this one, we get access to a classroom which allows us to traverse the opposite side of the school, which was previously not accessible to us. Doing so, we can get down to the basement where we find a lot of restraints and hospital beds and gurneys, things you'd expect to see in either a hospital or a mental ward. It's strange. We even find some bullets, but the biggest thing we find is when we go back upstairs and find a room containing a body, but also a shotgun. Yeah. This thing has been hung up using duct tape of sorts. And the shotgun is probably the most shotgun to ever shotgun a double-barrel shotgun, if you ask me. Basically, the thing is pretty strong if you do use it. But on the wall, though, there is some text. And it says, "Leonard Rhine, the monster lurks." So I tried to look into who Leonard Rhine is, and apparently he's supposed to be the janitor of the school, and he's been hung up and strewn up by someone. But in terms of other lore, this person never appears in any other Silent Hill entry or really anywhere else in any form of media. It's strange, it's kind of surprising that this is here, but they never really bring it up much. However, the text that said "monsters lurk," that's actually interesting because if we look at the graffiti, we'll find a book of the same name over in the library, and this one goes in and talks about the manifestation of delusions, how poltergeists are among these, and negative emotions like fear and worry or stress can manifest into external energy with physical effects, like how nightmares can manifest into different things. It's an interesting thing to note, but for now though, we can head back down into the basement, and there is a bit of a puzzle that needs to be solved here. You see, we need to pull these levers back and forth, and we have to do it in the correct order. Frankly, there is no actual explanation for how to do it. You just kind of have to do it with trial and error, and eventually if you do it correctly, the door opens and we can pass through. The hallway leads down to an elevator that quickly descends down, but where it takes us to is the strange part. We're in a room with a body in the center being set ablaze, and around us we're surrounded. But then we finally find ourselves in a boss fight. This is Splithead, and this is the first ever boss fight in Silent Hill. The first one you will ever encounter, and the first one in the entire series. Now, the thing about this boss fight is, obviously we can defeat it by shooting it, but not exactly. See, just firing straight bullets will not do much. The only way to truly take it down is to make something specific happen, and there's actually a hint to this much earlier in the library. See, when we were in the library earlier, if we unlocked it, there's actually a book which speaks about a hunter armed with a bow and an arrow, and it talks about something that sounds like Splithead, some form of a lizard, which he had to defeat when it opened its mouth. Based off of this, what we need to do is to shoot this thing repeatedly and attack it until it's opening its mouth up. When it does this, we're able to fire inside of it and defeat the Splithead. But I will say, when its mouth is open like this, it kind of reminds me of a Demogorgon from like Stranger Things, which is kind of cool to imagine that they might have used Silent Hill as an inspiration for those things. I don't know, just thought it was something that was, worth mentioning. But now that it's defeated, what do we do now? We see the girl again. You may not recognize her, but she was actually in the opening scene of the game. She was walking on the road, and it was actually the reason that Harry had to slide away and crash. But she just dissipates into thin air. Back in the regular version of the school, and on the floor we can find a key. It belongs to somebody called K. Gordon, and as we leave the basement, we also hear the sound of a church bell going off in the distance. We jotted down on our map, it's coming from the Balkan Church, which is interestingly named. It's probably worth going there in a bit, but first we check the front desk where we find a list of all the different teachers, including K. Gordon. This is a good way for us to figure out where he lives, now that we have his key. So back onto the streets we go again, and we find the back alley that takes us inside of K. Gordon's home. Frankly, there is nothing here besides a save location and some items. It's mostly just a way for us to get to the other side, getting us closer to the Balkan Church. But I don't get why it's called the Balkan Church. It never really made sense. I've looked online and nobody has figured it out. It's really strange for a game like Silent Hill, which usually has a meaning behind everything, but here it's not the case. Once we enter inside though, we meet someone.
Were you ringing that bell?
I've been expecting you. It was foretold by gyromancy.
This is Dahlia Gillespie, and she is a weird old lady. She seems to know why we're here. She even brings up a girl, maybe referring to Cheryl. She also just spouts a bunch of nonsense before eventually handing us the Florist piece, a pyramid-shaped object which we can use at a later point. She also gives us the direction which to head to, which is the hospital, but the hospital is located on the other side of Silent Hill. Currently we're in what's called Old Town, or Old Silent Hill, and to get there we can use the drawbridge key. So, with the key in hand, we head over towards the drawbridge. Obviously, there's enemies in the way, but eventually we pull the drawbridge down, and we can now enter the other side of Silent Hill. This other half is similar to what we've seen before, but we are introduced to a brand new enemy type again, and it's the Romper this time. Now, these things are larger and more animalistic. They are more human, adult-sized, I would say, as opposed to the enemies we've encountered so far, and they're dangerous. Okay? They will hit you hard, they will grab you and push you to the ground, and quite frankly, assault you, so it's probably the best to try to run away from them. Fighting them, they will take several bullets to take down, so it's kind of out of question to waste time actually trying to kill them. Instead, going away from them is the best course of action. For now though, we can enter the police station of Silent Hill. Inside of here we can find a few items like ammunition and things of that nature, but also an interesting note. It's about a coroner's report regarding an officer named Gucci, who is apparently unlikely to have been murdered. He apparently died of natural causes, which is weird, then why bring it up? However, the medical records for him showed that he had no prior symptoms of heart disease. So what took him out? Another thing we find is a blackboard which specifically has the following things written on it. It brings up the subject matter of some sort of drug that's being made using White Claudia. White Claudia being a herb, some sort of plant that grows within Silent Hill that's being concocted into a kind of drug, a psychedelic that's able to mess with people's minds to an extreme degree. Whatever this drug is, we don't know yet, but the fact that it's being brought up here could relate to Officer Gucci and his death. Maybe he was involved in the drug trade, or maybe he simply caught someone he shouldn't have caught and that cost him his life. We don't know. Instead, for now, we're gonna leave and head over to the Alchemilla Hospital. The hospital is, frankly, a classic place once again, just like schools in horror games nowadays. I think you could say the same thing about hospitals. They are by far one of the worst places because you only really go to a hospital if something is wrong, and it makes them the perfect place to base horror on, because usually hospitals, at least to someone like myself who's been in and out of hospitals my entire life, and I hate it, it makes me feel emotional even thinking about it, but the fact that they use it as a basis for horror makes sense. Going to hospitals is just not fun. It means something is wrong, and it makes sense to use it as the basis for where horrible and tragic emotions congregates. But we do find a room inside of the hospital. We see some blood on the floor and somebody sitting across the hall. Before we can even react, the guy stands up and instantly shoots at us. I don't know who the hell would do this. I get it that we're in a city that's completely controlled by monsters, but the fact that he instantly fires off a bullet is kind of insane. We explained that we're here on a simple vacation, and the guy reveals himself as a doctor. His name is Dr. Michael Kaufman, which you would recognize if you've played enough Silent Hill. The guy is infamous for different reasons, and I mean, shooting straight at us is probably one of them. He also killed one of the screamers on the floor, as we can see, but the fact that he just sat there observing it was kind of strange. It instantly makes him a weird guy, at least in my eyes. When we ask him if he's seen Cheryl, he feigns ignorance and almost implies as if she's dead by now, if she's even out there, given all the monsters, which is a fucked up thing to say to a father, but I digress. He then just disappears, and now we're stuck to explore the hospital on our own. And much like other locations within Silent Hill 1, we're mostly going to be running back and forth looking for any sort of clues. In one of the rooms we find a pile of what looks to be blood, but it's some sort of oozing liquid. We can actually pick this liquid up and put it inside of a bottle that we can find over in the kitchen. Doing so, this item can come in handy later in the game. For now, it serves no purpose. Also, if we go into the basement, it is dark and creepy, but there is yet another generator down here, and once it's on, the elevator will be functional. Unfortunately, the first, second, and third floor have nothing interesting, but after entering the third floor, suddenly on the board, a fourth floor appears. But if we click it, it's the girl again. We see her running away, and we've now entered the nightmare once more. This time we're in the nightmare version of the hospital itself. My exploration leads me back down into the basement, where I encounter a brand new enemy type that I've never seen before, which is the Puppet Doctor. Yeah, this is probably the only actual male medical staff type of enemy you'll ever find in a Silent Hill game, at least up until the point of me filming this video, because we are used to the nurses, the way they exist in the games, but this is the first time that a puppet doctor was ever used, and also the last time, because we don't actually see a medical staff enemy type that is ever a male character ever again after this point. The only ones are the female nurses, which appear in quite a few different games, whether it's the ones after Team Silent or even something like Silent Hill 2 has them. So generally speaking, it is kind of cool. And in terms of these guys, they have these hunchback parasites on them that will constantly infest them. So they're annoying, they will try to stab you, but they are not the only type of enemy we'll find here, because there are also nurses. The regular nurses are here too, and they also have some sort of parasite growing from their back, giving them a ugly hunchback, which is actually more disturbing in my opinion than the nurses we see much later in like Silent Hill 2 and every other game that has the nurses. Upstairs we find the plate of the Queen. This is one of many puzzle pieces we need to escape the nightmare. We also quickly pick up quite a few things after checking the morgue. We find a hammer in the generator room, and upstairs there's a room that has a lighter. With all these things in hand, we eventually also find a wall with some text on it.
clouds flowing over a hill, sky on a sunny day, tangerines that are bitter, lucky four-leaf clover, violets in the garden, dandelions along a path, unavoidable sleeping time.
And the last one is a bit more extreme. So these seem to be, again, riddles for the puzzle for the door right next to us. Now, we're going to be needing a bunch of pieces to complete this, with one of these pieces being found in the nearby room. But here's also where we run into the bloodsucker. This is yet another enemy, but this one is unkillable. I tried to hit it multiple times, but it's very similar to the sewer monster from Silent Hill 3, where it basically just tries to grab you and you can't seem to kill it. The only way to deal with it is to give it a blood pack, which you can find in a different room, and to distract it, because this thing wants to devour anything. It's a parasite mostly. Doing this, we'll be going to be able to actually pick up the item on the wall, that being the plate of the Hatter. Next up, we find another plate in the bathroom, the plate of the turtle, and in one of these bird cages there is nothing, but that's actually not true, because later on something will happen there. We also find the plate of the cat, and inside this one room I actually noticed that there is a CRT TV with a VHS player in the bottom. I haven't seen one of those in a long time in real life. I really want one, but nonetheless, there is nothing important, because now all we have to do is use these plates that we found to actually open up the door. In doing so, we're going to be able to get to the other side. What waits for us there? Well, mostly enemies to start with, but we also find a key in one of the rooms. The key is specifically leading us down back into the basement, because this would be the basement storeroom key, so we pick it up. Yet another item we do also find around here is nothing else than a disinfectant. It's alcohol specifically. Now, if we go downstairs and use the basement key, we can open up into the storeroom. Initially, I didn't notice anything until I saw this wall where we could push the giant shelf away. Doing so shows us a secret path going inside of here, and unfortunately we can't go through yet, because if we look at the giant hole in the ground, it's a grate, but it's covered with vines that are growing all around it. Now, initially I just tried to burn it with my lighter, but that wasn't enough. Turns out the best way to do this is to actually use a disinfectant we just found. Using this and then the lighter, and guess what? We can blast this bad boy on fire, which is exactly what we do. With that being doable, we go down into this really sketchy basement. It's very narrow to start with, and the look of the whole place changes drastically. I mean, keep in mind, the hospital has been looking one specific way, but now the walls are different. They're more wood-like, but also they're wider, as if we're inside of a mental institute or something. In one of the rooms, though, we do find something very interesting, which is a VHS tape, or videotape, which is interesting because, remember, we saw a VHS player and a TV upstairs just moments ago, which is exactly where we're going to have to head to use this thing. But we also do look around the rest of this area, because there are a few places we haven't completely checked out, like, for example, this room.
Looks like someone's been here.
The picture we're looking at is of a girl named Alessa, and she looks like the girl we've seen when we had Harry crash his car, but she also looks like the girl that's been constantly stalking us as we've been going around this place. Who she is? Well, we're going to figure it out, but the fact that her picture is in this room could imply that she was a patient here, or maybe the daughter of someone who worked here. But now we can actually use the VHS upstairs, and what's on this tape is strange. Nothing is clear within the tape, like nothing makes sense, it's too cut out. The only thing that is super clear is the last sentence, which is, please, as if pleading for something to be over with. But for now, we don't exactly know the context of it. Instead, we can use the examination room key, which also leads us to this person. Name is Lisa Garland, and she's a nurse that works at Alchemilla Hospital. However, unlike most other people, she still remained here. The other nurses have all turned into monsters, but she's the only normal one we've found so far, and it's because she's been hiding in this room the entire time. She doesn't know what happened to everyone or what went into them, but she thinks she must have been knocked out and stuck inside of the room, hence why she hasn't been able to figure out what's going on. It's a bit unfortunate, but Lisa just seems like an innocent soul, at the same time also seems like somebody just terrified of the entire situation. But before we can help her, suddenly something happens to Harry himself.
What did you say was down there?
Well, it's... Damn! My head.
What's wrong? Harry? Harry, let me help you. Harry?
Was I dreaming?
You were too late.
It's you.
Yes, Dahlia Gillespie.
After waking up from the headache, Lisa is gone and the only person we see is Dahlia, but we're also back in the normal version of Alchemilla Hospital. But what she tells us next is that there is a darkness that is devouring the town of Silent Hill, a darkness that is coming and being strengthened by some sort of child. Maybe it's the Alessa girl or someone else. Nonetheless, though, she brings up that it's all related to the church, this evil being Samael, as far as I understood, which I'm assuming is just the devil, to be honest with you, but also that it's stemming from the pentagram, triangle, whatever you want to call them, pyramid-shaped things that we've seen around the town, especially the one we saw in the school early on. She is able to hand us a key before disappearing. When we pick the key up, it's for an antique shop. Now, to be able to get there, we're going to have to step outside of the hospital, finally. I'll be honest, the hospital in this game is pretty solid. But I will say there is a lot of up and down running around, which is really common for Silent Hill games. That's what they're all about, and it's the process of going through that makes it interesting. I would say one thing though is that there's quite a few enemies here that are just a little repetitive sometimes, the nurses and the doctors. I do appreciate that there's at least two of them and not just the nurses like we see in some of the other future games. I like that there's a bit of variety, but nonetheless though, the hospital is still a solid location, and especially compared to, say, one of the games like, I don't know, Homecoming, where frankly speaking the hospital section was probably one of the worst ones, but nonetheless it is still a decent location. Now though, if we inspect the key, we'll be able to see that it's for the Green Lion Antique Shop. To get there, we're gonna have to run quite a bit of a distance because it's in the top right hand of the city, so we're gonna have to go quite far to get there. But as we reach the area, it is a interesting shop because to get to it, we have to step down quite a few stairs, as if going deeper underground, deeper into whatever this hellhole exactly is. The key naturally works, but on the inside, it is relatively empty for an antique shop. There is an old clock, which doesn't really tell us much. It's not really doing anything, it's barely moving, it's just set at 3 o'clock and that's it. But we do find yet another shelf or just cabinet which we can push once more. This time there is a giant hole on the other side, but where that leads we don't know. But also, someone shows up.
Harry!
Sybil?
Sybil is back, and luckily she's safe, but she does reveal quite a few things for us. First of all, she had no way out of the actual Silent Hill town. Turns out all the roads have been blocked off, which is kinda nuts. The second thing is that we tell her about Dahlia Gillespie and the whole darkness devouring the town thing. Naturally, Sybil doesn't really play into it or really fully believe it, but it doesn't really matter. We also mention Alessa, but also Cheryl herself, bringing up that we've seen a little girl that's been running around that potentially could be her. Turns out Sybil has seen somebody similar to that running in one of the directions, so at least we know kind of where we need to head off next to. But the other thing we bring up is actually really intriguing. See, Sybil mentions that maybe Dahlia Gillespie is on drugs, right? Turns out there is a drug going around. We've already spoken about it a little bit before, but there's a drug in the town of Silent Hill which is being sold to a bunch of, well, I guess tourists and stuff, and she thinks maybe this Dahlia person is using them as well, hence why her behavior is so erratic and strange. If that's the case, we do not know. The next thing though is actually checking out what's behind the hole. At first, Sybil offers to do it herself, to go inside, which To be fair, it would have made more sense. She's a trained police officer. We're just a guy. But Harry insists, and also he mentions the hospital and meeting Lisa Garland, but also brings up how it turned dark, right? How we entered the other world, the nightmare version of Silent Hill, but Sybil doesn't take it seriously. She just thinks that something might be going on with Harry's mind and that he's maybe going a little bit crazy. So he ignores her and enters the other side. Here we find a creepy looking altar, very occult and extremely relatable to the previous stuff we've seen with the pentagrams and whatever else that maybe Dahlia was referring to. Hell, there's even graffiti on the wall that says "No God," which is kind of extreme. If we try to leave, however, then something happens.
Harry? Are you okay? Harry? Harry?
Harry is gone because Harry's about to wake up somewhere strange yet again. We're back with Lisa, seemingly in the hospital. But how?
Then I'm in the hospital?
You were having a bad dream.
Was I? Hey, you don't look too good. Are you okay?
I'm fine. Nothing you need to worry about.
Well, if you're sure. Lisa, do you know a woman named Dahlia Gillespie?
Oh yeah, that crazy Gillespie lady. She's kind of famous around here. She never sees anybody, so I don't know that much about her. But I heard her kid died in a fire, and supposedly she's been crazy ever since.
Well, she says the town is being devoured by the darkness. Do you have any idea what she's talking about?
The town devoured by the darkness. Yes, I think I do. Before this place was turned into a resort, the townspeople here were on the quiet side. Everybody followed some kind of queer religion. Weird occult stuff. Black magic, that kind of thing. As young people moved away, the people figured they'd been summoned by the gods. Evidently, things like that used to happen around here all the time. Before the resort, there really wasn't anything else out here. Everyone was so flipped out. You gotta blame it on something. Then a lot of new people came in and everybody clammed up about it.
A cult?
Last time I heard anything about it was, gosh, years ago, when several people connected with developing the town died in accidents. People said it was a curse. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm rambling. I'll shut up.
But before Harry can even answer Lisa here, he blacks out again. And this time wakes up somewhere completely different once more.
Was that another dream? Did I pass out again?
At this point, even Harry is starting to question if all of this stuff that's going on is just inside his own mind. Could it be possible that he had a car accident and now he's just laying unconscious, just dying, and all of this is just a bad nightmare? Who knows? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But Sybil said that Cheryl had been seen, or at least she spotted her running on a road towards the lake, so at least that's something to work with. And mind you, Lisa did just reveal to us that the entire town has already been messing with the occult for a long time in their history, so we can already make the assumption that these things are connected. She also mentioned that Dahlia Gillespie had a kid who passed away in a fire, so in some way she should be able to relate to the pains that Harry's going through, which is maybe why she's giving him so many keys and directions to follow. Once we exit into the streets, we're no longer in the regular Silent Hill. We are now in the otherworld version of the streets of Silent Hill, which is interesting because when we saw the otherworld sort of seep into the city of Silent Hill earlier, it was different, right? It was just kind of a bit of a dark black skybox. But now the entire town is gone way more in the direction of what the hospital and the school look like, where everything is rusted metal and decaying. Entering into the Silent Hill town center, and when we try to go upstairs in the escalator, something plays on the TVs.
Daddy, help me.
Say that this is disturbing is well, the least we could say. It's literally Cheryl showing up on the screen alongside a bunch of different patterns, including the pattern of the cult that we've seen before. So at least we know that she should still be alive. So all we can do is rush upstairs really quickly, but in the corner, it looks like a body and a bug, but before you know it, we fall down into a boss arena. Yeah, that's just pretty obvious. It's a boss arena. It's instantly clear to us, but the boss fight is an interesting one because this is the Twin Feeler, and it is a sort of bug that will bury itself underground and then jump out and headbutt the living shit out of Harry Mason. But luckily for us though, there is a weapon we can find inside of this room, which is the rifle, which is also essentially the last gun we'll find in this playthrough, because I don't think I found any other ones unless I missed them. But for the most part, we're gonna have to use this thing to shoot the Twin Feeler. Frankly speaking, you mostly just want to stand back and hopefully try to shoot it when it jumps out and not giving too much close range, because if you stand close to it, it will do a lot of damage. If we defeat the Twin Feeler, it scurries away, but also opens up a path for us to get out of the city center. So now that we've escaped, I actually love this one section here where you can see these rusted looking windmills, and it just brings again this feeling of why this game is such a cool game, because even though it's so old, and even though there are better looking games graphically nowadays, the sort of aura that this game has and the sort of aesthetic that it went for is just universally always good. Genuinely, I really mean it, that this game has been able to stay still good looking, even though it has, again, very dated graphics for this day and age. It is still a game that looks good because the art style was so specific. You don't see games back then that look just like this in this particular way, where the creepiness factor comes from this atmosphere. There were no games doing this. The closest would maybe be something like Resident Evil, but even that was different. Also, now we encounter some new enemy types. Well, technically they're the same enemy types, but basically the Screamers and Groaners are now different, because now they're called the Night Flutter, and it's essentially same or similar to the, Air Screamers, but except this thing is supposed to be more like a pterodactyl type of bird. Again, similar, but this one is only found in this Nightmare Otherworld version of Silent Hill. As for the other one, it is the Wormhead, which again is a Groaner, but now its head has been completely consumed by worms that have infested it and taken it over. It's, again, very interesting, but also shows that they clearly sort of were running out of maybe budget at this point and decided that, hey, instead of making an entirely new enemy type for just this otherworld version of the Silent Hill, township, let's just instead reuse the models we have and slightly alter them, which is pretty common, nowadays. But back in the day, you gotta do what you gotta do to cut some corners, and I fully understand it. After checking the police station, we now head back to the hospital where we can once again meet Lisa.
Harry!
Glad you're okay.
Thank God you came back. I was scared to be here all alone.
She seems a little bit confused, but also just, again, terrified. I mean, the woman is just stuck in this hospital over and over again, just fearing for her life. But she does reveal something important, which is we tell her that we need to get to the lake, and she tells us to take Bachman Road. The only issue is that it seems that it's blocked. So she tells us about a pathway that would require us to go into the sewers to get there. So all we can do now is to follow exactly that. But before we leave, she does seem terrified. She doesn't want us to leave, but unfortunately for her, well, Harry needs to find Cheryl. He wants to save his daughter, so nothing's going to stop him.
Oh, Harry, I'm so scared. I'm cold.
Look, just wait here a little longer. I'll be back as soon as I find my daughter.
Harry?
It doesn't really feel nice exactly to leave her behind. I'd love to take her with us, but that's even more dangerous. But also staying with her would be leaving Cheryl out there in the open as well. It's not ideal no matter what we do. But when we try to leave the hospital this time around, we're not actually outside on the streets again. Instead, we're on a rooftop. and we're in yet another boss fight. This time it's against the Float Stinger, and this is a giant moth-looking enemy. And I'm gonna be real with you, I hate moths, okay? I'm a massive moth hater, so killing this thing is the best thing I could possibly have been doing here, because this fight is, generally speaking, a little bit harder if you do not have ammunition on some of the higher modes in the game, but given again that we're playing this on easy mode, it is not that difficult. We just have to keep our distance for the most part, because the thing will like shoot us with like acid or something. So for the most part, going around corners and staying further away from it is the most ideal thing to do. With it defeated, we should be able to get back onto the streets. For now though, we run towards the elementary school because that is where the sewer pipes should be found. If we break through the lock at the front gate, we can get inside and climb down into the sewer system. The sewer section of the game is probably, I would say, one of the weakest sections because it's relatively short and there isn't really a lot of things of interest down here, besides obviously one type of enemy, that being the hanged scratchers. These weird things are found in the sewer mainly, and they are extremely annoying because they will sneak up on you and attack you and make an annoying noise. Not the most fun enemy type to fight against or, you know, deal with, but they are here, and I do like their overall design. In terms of what they look like, at least to me, they just look like these weird, almost like frogmen, if you want to call them that, like frog bugmen mixed into one. Now though, we're able to actually get out of the sewers and find ourselves on the other side. See, now we find ourselves in the resort area part of Silent Hill. This is where the lakefront is, but this entire section here is actually optional. You don't have to do anything here. You can completely skip the entire area, but there is a side quest here that is important if you want to get all of the other endings. If we run over to a place called Annie's Bar, we can save the Dr. Kaufman from being almost killed by one of these enemies called the Mumbler. The Mumblers are these weird mole-looking creatures. They're actually what replaces the Grey Child characters, monsters that you find in some of the other versions of the game, like in Europe and Japan. But in the US, they actually kept them. So yeah, now that we've found this guy and saved his life, he still doesn't give us any answers. And when we ask him if he knows a girl named Alessa, he says no, but something tells me he's lying, because he says it in a very aggressive tone. But Kaufman made a big mistake. He dropped a few things behind him. One of these things is a key and also a receipt. If we check the receipt, it actually has a code which we can use somewhere else. See, it's able to open up the Indian Runner, I think drugstore is what this place is meant to be. And so on the inside, we'll find a few items. One of the first things we find is a drawer containing a safe key. Now, there is a safe right there, but for whatever reason, I just didn't use it. Don't ask me why. I'll explain what's in the safe though. But we also find some notes.
August 20th, he came by. I handed over the package that the woman left here. September 12th, he showed up at Norman's too. Don't want to be involved with the likes of them anymore, but I'm getting creeped out even more than before. Thought of leaving town, but I'm afraid of what will happen if I do.
So this sounds like somebody who worked at the store itself who had to deal with possibly Kaufman. And, well, we can learn one more thing, which is if we check one of the boards here, it has a list of things that need to be delivered, and also that it needs to go to the back door daily at 8 a.m. at the rear entrance, and the code is 0886. But here's the big one. If we look at the safe and if we actually opened it, which I didn't do in my playthrough, but had we opened it, what we would have found on the inside would have been PTV. Now, PTV is the drug that's created from White Claudia, plant from the city and town of Silent Hill. So this can deduce a few things for us. Kaufman is clearly involved. The fact that he had the key to this place and he has some sort of involvement with this thing, and the fact that he is a doctor. So if there's anyone who could concoct something like this together, it would make sense. But it's also kind of fucked up because we've been helping this guy. We've been saving him so many times only for it to turn out that he is potentially a monster. Inside this room, I'm assuming it belongs to Kaufman because we find a newspaper just like the one in the hospital that had been having its pages torn out, and what we read is that it's an investigation that stalled on the PTV dealers still at large. Suspicious deaths continue, like the anti-drug mayor, a narcotics officer dies of a sudden heart failure of unknown origin. So basically, This has to have been Kaufman. Who else could have done it? I mean, it's pretty clear it's what the game is implying here. The fact that right after we met Kaufman, we found a newspaper just like this one, but the pages were torn out. But here we can actually read what those pages said. They were about somebody dealing this drug, and that probably is Kaufman himself. The correlation is pretty clear, and all the implications are there. But inside of this room, we can find a magnet to pick up. It's a weird concocted magnet, but I'm not going to question it. Also, there's this photo. So if you're a gooner, there you go. If we leave the hotel main lobby and use Kaufman's key, we can find his room, moving one of these shelves here, and suddenly we find something on the floor. It is a key, but to reach it, we're gonna have to use the magnet we just found. Oh, now we have a motorcycle key. Using it, we run back to that same door from before and back into the garage instead. The garage does have a motorcycle, and when we observe it, there are a few strange things, like the fact that it's been sitting here for years, but something is strange about the bicycle, or the motorcycle, which is the fact that it's dusty, but the dust is wiped away just around the gas tank cap. We then decide to use the motorcycle key, at which point we find a small glass vial wrapped in a plastic bag. It's just like the busted vial that we found in the director's office at the hospital, if you remember, the liquid we scooped up using one of the other plastic bottles that we found. But just as we do this, just as we grab it, Kaufman appears. And he's not happy. He demands us to hand over the bottle, and he's very aggressive about it.
That's none of your business. Instead of messing with that, how about coming up with a way to get out of here? You shouldn't be hanging around here goofing off. What do you think you're doing? You want to get yourself killed? Get out of here.
Okay, take it easy.
Unless you want to die, keep your mind on business. Got it?
To say that Kaufman is a piece of shit is an understatement. The dude's an asshole through and through, and the reaction he had clearly, again, perfectly points us in the direction of where this guy is connected to this entire PTV drug thing. I mean, as soon as we picked up any liquid that he didn't want us to have any involvement with, he instantly started losing his mind. With Kaufman gone, we can now actually run towards the pier and the lake, but as we do this, in the middle of us running, for the first time, Harry does not faint, but he does witness the moment the town literally turns into the other world, and it instantly shifts, and suddenly things are back to being catastrophically bad for us. But this also means that Harry has figured out that it's actually us shifting reality. It's more like reality becoming a nightmare, but he can actually notice it now. He sees the difference. For now though, we beeline it towards the pier where we find one of the boats. If we go inside of it, we meet Sybil again.
Sybil,
Harry!
how did you get back here?
I followed the sewer. Were you the one who cut the fence?
Yeah, I'm glad you made it. I was worried about you.
You were worried? Where did you disappear to? Never mind. I want to know what's going on here. What is with this town?
This may sound really off the wall, but listen to me. You've got to believe me. I haven't gone crazy, and I'm not fooling around. At first, I thought I was losing my mind, but now I know I'm not. It's not me. This whole town. It's being invaded by the other world.
He said it. He said the thing. He called it the other world. I'm assuming this was the first time the actual other world was referred to as the other world rather than the nightmare world, whatever else. But it's clear that our boy actually seems to understand what seems to be happening here. That the entire town gets swallowed by this darkness, this other reality swallows everything up and then shifts it back and forth. But she doesn't seem to get it. She's still not understanding any of this. But as we're talking about this, somebody shows up once again.
The demon is awakening, spreading those wings.
Dahlia Gillespie.
Was it not as I said? I see it all now. Yes, everything. Hungry for sacrifice, the demon will swallow up the land. I knew this day would come. And what's more, the task is almost finished. There's only 2 left. To seal this town to the abyss, the mark of Samael. When it is completed, all is lost. Even in daytime, darkness will cover the sun. The dead will walk, and martyrs will burn in the fires of hell. Everyone will die.
So what am I supposed to do? I've got to save Cheryl.
It is simple. Stop the demon. The demon taking that child's form.
We can surmise the demon she's referring to here being the Alessa girl that we've seen running around. When questioning her if we can actually save Cheryl, she tells us that we can go to the lighthouse or to the amusement park, and there's where we're going to be able to find the demon. So, luckily for us though, Sybil offers to go to the amusement park, but when we ask Dahlia if that's even going to be safe, well, she's already vanished. So the only thing we have left to do is to run to the lighthouse on our own. So the road to actually get to the lighthouse is kind of annoying, but the lighthouse itself is pretty straightforward. We just go up these spiral stairs, but who we find on the top is Alessa. She's waiting here around this strange circle and fog, and even though Harry tries to speak to her, she just doesn't answer. Instead, once again, she vanishes as if just merely being a specter. So our only option at this point is to go back to the boat and see if Sybil found anything at the amusement park. So down the stairs we go, but man, these stairs are kind of annoying, especially with the old controllers on the PlayStation 1. However, Sybil is not back at the boats. She's nowhere to be found. Actually, it's kind of strange. By now, she should have been back. So the only thing we can do is to check on her. So heading over to one of the weird, manhole covers. It looks like Sybil has used this one to get to the amusement park, so we use the same thing. Looks like Sybil was knocked out by someone in the underground tunnels, which could potentially have been, well, really anyone. Maybe Kaufman, maybe even Dahlia could have done it, or maybe Alessa. We don't really know. Now we're down in yet another set of sewers, and it's similar to before, except these look a bit different. Unlike the sewers we saw before, which had a general sewer vibe, these have these occult markings in them, and they feel far more like the otherworld version of the sewers, rather than the normal ones we've seen before. But we quickly traverse through them and make our way to the other side. Of course, now that we're in the amusement park, we run into, naturally, the gray ones again. Naturally, given the theme of this place. But the amusement park doesn't have a map, so it's a bit harder to traverse than some of the other areas. And also, just the overall feeling feels wrong. Just seeing these childhood locations, places I would have had fun when I was a kid going to, now derelict and destroyed, is not very cumbersome. But nonetheless, we eventually find a control room, but it doesn't really give us a solution to where we need to go. Instead, if the weird little larval stalkers, the ones that fall over and freak out, if we can listen to their noises, they lead us towards one of the attractions, and here we meet Sybil again. So this is one other boss fight in the game, and it's the boss fight against Sybil. She has been taken over by something. Whoever knocked her out seems to have infested her with something that is akin to the other monsters that we've seen in Silent Hill so far. And this thing is awful, because now we have to take on someone who's only been trying to help us. Sybil is a sympathetic character. She's a decent person. All she's been doing this entire time is trying to help us, and instead we are now forced to kill her, But this is where something important comes into play. See, if we had picked up that weird, like reddish liquid back at the hospital, this is an important item that will completely change which ending you get in this game, because if we have that said item, we can throw it at her and this will cause her to force the larva out of her body. Doing so, Harry can step on it and destroy it. Now, mind you, this leads to a completely different ending if you do it, and it's completely side and optional. If you didn't do it, then guess what? You're not going to see what this ending leads to by keeping Sybil alive, because the only other option is to kill her. But now, Harry reveals something very important.
Harry, why did they take your daughter? Why her?
I'm not sure myself. But, you know, Cheryl isn't my biological daughter. I actually haven't told her yet. She probably already knows anyway, though. We found her abandoned on the side of the highway. Nobody knew where she came from. We didn't have any kids of our own. My wife was sick, and it didn't look like she was getting any better. So we took Cheryl in.
So in that case...
there might be some connection between Cheryl and this town.
So what do you do now?
Cheryl is my daughter. I will save her no matter what.
Yeah, Cheryl's not even his biological daughter. Him and his wife found her essentially abandoned on the road as a baby and took her in. Like, think about that. This man adopted this girl and still cares so much that he will go through literal hell to find her, because she is his daughter, no matter if she does or doesn't have his blood. She still matters so much to him that he will do everything in his power, go through quite literally hell in this game to save her. That is beautiful, but also so tragic if you think about it. And the fact that we had almost had to kill Sybil, and if you actually killed her, you would have never even heard this part of the story, is depressing, because it adds even more just lore, but also more character to Harry Mason, a man who's gone out of his way to do all of this to save a girl who technically isn't his own blood, but somebody he took in, somebody who's become his true daughter because of how much care he's given towards her. It's actually incredible, but I digress. Now that we figured this out, we need to keep going. At this point, Harry is able to confront Alessa. The only issue is that she has powers, basically psychic powers, and with this she can push him away, but the florist piece that we were given by Dahlia suddenly reacts to Alessa's presence, and then does a quick drive-by of her because she gets shot down by this thing. Then, of course, none else than Dahlia appears, and suddenly a few more things become clear. For one, Dahlia reveals that she's Alessa's mother. Yeah, turns out they're related, which is interesting given the other context of what's going on here, because this is also where Dahlia reveals something else. Turns out that she had escaped some sort of spell which Dahlia had put on her. For what reason, at this point we don't know, and before we can stop the two of them, they disappear and we re-emerge back at the hospital once again, with none else than Lisa. But something doesn't feel right about her. And actually, I don't know if any of you or anybody's ever noticed this, but if you look at her face in this exact scene right here, you can see in this one split second where her eye twitches. I don't know if that was a mistake that was done by the rendering engine. I don't know if this was a mistake made when they were like making the 3D, animations, but just that little eye twitch makes me feel a little bit more suspicious of her. Maybe I'm crazy, but I don't know, something about that was a little bit off to me. But now she does reveal that she had been down in the basement, and there's definitely some creepy rooms, and there's something about that place that she knows, but she just cannot remember what it is, and she starts freaking out, and Harry's not really much of help for her.
You're in shock from when you were knocked out. Don't fret about it. You'll remember after a while.
No. You don't understand.
Wait! Where do you think you're going?
With Lisa gone, the only place we have to head towards is the basement, and since we're back in the hospital, we should know our way around, but when we exit through the door, the place looks different, like it's changed in some way or shape.
I'm being summoned. What happened in this town? What could be making things like this? I have a feeling if I take the elevator down, I'll find it. Cheryl.
So, we aren't really in the hospital. We're technically nowhere, which is kind of funny because yes, that's what the entire place here is called. Rather than being somewhere, it's nowhere in Silent Hill. It's a location that doesn't exist, but also does exist because it's a manifestation of something. It's a manifestation of somebody's mind and a place from that mind. Either way, now that we're nowhere, we have to find out where to go, and that is somewhere. And that somewhere should be the source of this entire thing. But as you will notice, a lot of the locations inside of this place are actually containing locations we've seen before. The birdcage now actually has a key inside of it, which was not there before. When we previously entered this same room, similarly inside of the hospital, the birdcage was empty, but now it has something inside of it. So, to begin with, we're gonna have to run around and collect a bunch of different items. If we collect all of these without a map, because that's sort of the worst part about exploring the nowhere section of the game, is that you literally have nothing to rely on. You just sort of have to remember which door you did and didn't go through. And since everything here is sort of interconnected, there are areas like this place, which is the antique shop, but then there is hospital sections and a little bit of everything mashed into one from the different places. Like rooms that looked like the elementary school, rooms that looked like the hospital, and rooms that look like the antique shop right here. Also, if it isn't clear, we could definitely assume that these locations are related to Alessa. The fact that there is only one bench inside of this classroom was probably her bench. We can see that there are markings on it, as if markings from bullies. She most likely did not have the best time when she went to school, which also would explain why all the creatures and monsters that we encounter seem to be of child size, maybe because other children didn't treat her that well. If we pick up a screwdriver and some pliers, we can actually use these in different rooms that we'd previously seen, like in the hospital, that we were not able to, actually access. We also uncover a giant board that lists out a bunch of different names and a few different people on the Grim Reaper's list. However, if we take the first letter of each of their names, it can spell out the word, actually I think even the word later, but the word we need is alert, because if we type this into the door right next to the plaque, we'll enter what looks to be the storeroom from the hospital, followed by a pathway into the morgue where we'll find one of the objects we need to get through the next section. But that's not where things end, because on our way out, we run into someone.
Harry,
Lisa, what's the matter with you?
I get it now. Why I'm still alive even though everyone else is dead. I'm not the only one who's still walking around.
So, it's Lisa, and she doesn't really sound completely fine. She is essentially saying that, just like the others in the hospital, the other nurses who've all been taken over by the fungi, or whatever you want to call it, she's one of them. It's as if to admit that she is not actually physically there, that she's merely a specter, but as she goes in to hug Harry, he panics and pushes her away. But unfortunately, what ends up happening is that Lisa bleeds out in this exact moment. Her head cracks open and she limps towards Harry. By far, out of every other moment in this game, this is the one that probably hits the hardest. Lisa is most likely the second most innocent person in this entire game, and seeing her just trying to limp towards you to be comforted, even in her last moments, is heartbreaking. So Harry rushes out of the room, but if we go back inside, we'll find something. It's Lisa's diary on the floor, and we can pick it up.
Ask doctor to let me quit being in charge of that patient. It's too weird. Still alive, but with wounds that won't heal. Told the doctor I quit, won't work at that hospital anymore. The room is filled with insects. Even with doors and windows shut, they get in to spite me. To the hospital. Feeling bad, need to throw up, but nothing comes out. Vomiting only bile. Blood and pus flow from the bathroom faucet. I try to stop it, but it won't turn off. Need drug. Help me.
Out of many of the characters in this game, I think Lisa's character is one of the most tragic. Based on what we can read here, based on what we can observe, and this is not even the full picture because there's one more thing that will reveal more about her I'm going to check out in a second, but the fact that Harry pushes her away, basically cracking her skull open and more or less killing her, but not really, because Lisa was never there. What we saw was merely an apparition of sorts. The real Lisa is long gone. What remained was merely a husk, just a piece of her soul perhaps, lingering in the hospital, hiding and cowering in fear. But what we read inside of here is that she was seeking a drug, and we know there is one particular drug that is very present in this game, the one that Kaufman seems intricately connected to, and we can already surmise that Lisa was using these drugs maybe to cope with what she was dealing with at the time, which was taking care of Alessa, because that's the girl she was taking care of. It was Alessa's body that was down in the basement. It was her that she took care of, and the one with the burn wounds. It all makes sense, because mind you, we know, based on what we've been told from others, that Dahlia, well, her daughter passed away in a fire, but she didn't really, because it's Alessa. For now though, we solve one of the puzzles in this other room, which just requires us to press the exact amount of limbs that show up on the different creatures on the walls. If we do this, the Stone of Time will pop out, which we can take. With that item in our hands, we can take the elevator down to another floor to find the Crest of Mercury and the Ring of Contract. With these two, we're going to be able to also go and check something else. See, there's a key here, but it's locked behind electricity, so we can't get it. We also pick up a camera, but the biggest thing we'll find is going to be when we explore upstairs. There is an altar of sorts and two rooms on either side, which need to be solved with a puzzle. I'm gonna be honest, had to look this one up. This puzzle was just way too complicated. You have to base it on the images on the wall and where the coloring on it is more dark and where it's more white. It's confusing. I'm not even going to try to explain it. But we do also find the birdcage key, and this one is important because we need to check what's inside that birdcage. There's also a botanical reference book here, which unfortunately I cannot read because I didn't actually check one of the blackboards in the police office. But had I done that, we would have learned about White Claudia, and here it just talks about it being a perennial herb found near water in Silent Hill. It reaches the height of 10 to 15 inches. It has oblong leaves and white blossoms. Seeds contain hallucinogens. Ancient records show it was used for religious ceremonies, and the hallucinogenic effects was the key. So again, this builds up this idea that Kaufman is related because the room we find these inside of is the room where it was his office previously. Also, we find a key, the phallic key, inside of the birdcage, which takes us to a new area. It's the basement. Again, we take down an enemy type here. It's a different sort of larva. It's a larger version. It's not like the tiny ones. And we also eat some jelly beans, which is extremely random. I don't know why exactly it's jelly beans. Makes no sense to me. Maybe it's a manifestation of Alessa's ideas of the stuff she enjoyed. Maybe she really liked jelly beans. I don't know. But if we open them up and try to eat them, what we're going to find instead is an item. That item is a form of key, I guess you could say. It's yet another one. This one is the Bethor key. So this one's going to unlock yet another room, but this time it's the room where we can find the VCR. So this time around, when we play the tape, something different will show up than what we've seen before.
What is it? Still has an unusually high fever. Eyes don't open.
getting a pulse, but just barely breathing. Her skin is all charred. Even when I change the bandages, the blood and pus just start oozing through. Why? What is keeping that child alive? I can't stand it any longer. I won't tell a soul. Promise. So please.
So this confirms the existing suspicions already, which is that Alessa is basically being kept alive for whatever reasons, and Lisa was the one taking care of her down there. And while doing all of this, she was sort of just disgusted by the whole thing. We can even hear Dahlia in the clip asking what the deal is, what the problem is. But if we go back down into the basement, we'll find a room filled with a bunch of graffiti on it, and in the corner we see the apparition of Alessa. She seems to be sulking and then dissipates, which again would imply that this girl's been through quite the hell. We pick up the Ankh, which is a little Egyptian ornament. We're gonna need it in this other room because this room is important. See, this is Alessa's room. We know this because on the wall we can see these butterflies that have been hung up and also moths, and on the wall there is a dress. A girl's clothing hangs on the wall. 6, maybe 7 must be the kid's age based on, you know, I guess the size of the thing, because I mean he has a daughter himself, so he would know. There's a locked door and we're gonna have to use the different items we found to go through it, but that's not possible at the moment because we miss a few keys. We turn off the generator in one of the rooms, which is great, but then we enter what looks to be the cafeteria or kitchen that we've seen inside of the previous locations. However, we find the Dagger of Melkor here, and if we take it and simply walk away, well, something happens. And what happens is that we get grabbed by something on the ground. It's a bloodsucker, and it's gonna pull us in and kill us. Then this is an instant game over. So instead, if we use one of the rings we found, we can lock this thing up and the bloodsucker will not be able to get out. However, there will still be a scene that plays because we can hear the thing inside of there getting angry because now it has no way of escaping once again. But I digress. Back upstairs, if we actually use the generator now being turned off, we can get the key of Eritron, and this leads us into a new cutscene inside of the room where Alessa was being kept when she was injured.
Everything is going according to plan, sheltered in the womb.
But it's not done yet. Half the soul is lost. That is why the seed lies dormant.
And what soul remains captured in that husk is buried deep down in the subconscious.
Are you trying to say it won't work? That wasn't our agreement.
No, these are just stalling tactics. If we lend a hand, we will be able to get power. Never fear, the promise shall not be broken.
But the power we could draw now will be very weak. Almost nothing. Unless we get the other half of the soul.
We'll use a magical spell. Feeling this child's pain, it's sure to come.
But that will take time.
So Alessa was injured, and basically we get a revelation here that she's been kept alive the entire time by them. They wanted to use her to summon her powers, her psychic powers, to summon a creature, a demon, the devil himself. But eventually when we open the door, we will find even more hints to this. We can see Dahlia try to force Alessa to go with her, try to force her into whatever thing she wants to do, sacrifice, whatever else you want to call it. We can see her pleading for her life, pleading just to be with her mama. That's all she wants. But Dahlia is, to really use any other word would be like disingenuous, she is a piece of shit. She is a monster. She is the devil herself, like quite literally. She used her own child, her own kin, to pretty much just summon a demon, which is the most ridiculous thing ever, because why would you? Like, who cares? But again, I'm just a man. Maybe I don't understand the logic of cultists. But for now, we can see this scene play out before we walk down the stairs and witness even more. We walk in on Sybil trying to stop Dahlia, but it doesn't really matter because she's being pushed away by some sort of power. And when he asks Dahlia where is Cheryl, this is where the plot twist actually happens. It turns out we have seen her this entire time. She is Alessa, or for the lack of a better term, they both are Alessa, or Cheryl and Alessa are the same person. Basically, Alessa split her soul in two, and the other half of her is what became Cheryl, the piece of her that was never truly a full-on human, just a piece, a part of her, and a half of her, which was adopted and taken in by, well, Harry himself. However, now she has connected those two pieces. They have merged into one, and they are the girl we see in front of us, but it's a girl that is somewhat broken. So why is this all happening? Well, it's because Dahlia has been trying to nurture a nightmare by using the powers of Alessa to bring out him, Samael, this demon creature, whatever you want to call it. That's the whole purpose for this, just to summon the devil himself. Dahlia doesn't last for long because suddenly Dr. Kaufman shows up and puts a few bullets inside of her, which is very lovely. It's absolute cinema if you ask me. But next, he also throws something at Alessa as she's turning into this angelic being. She gets hit by that same liquid that we saw earlier, that same liquid we found in his motorcycle. And see, this only happens if we've done the side quests. This completely changes what ending we're going to be getting. If this liquid has the same effect, it should pull the creature, the parasite that was inside of her out, just like what happened to Sybil. So what comes out of her? Well, it's the demon himself that exits her body. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is our next boss fight. This thing is called the Incubus, and funny enough, there are two versions of this thing. So the Incubus is the final boss you'll find if you get the good endings, which is the path we are on for this video, but there is a alternate version which is slightly different. And that is the Incubator, which is a different boss fight that comes with the bad endings, right? So there is the Incubus and the Incubator, and either one is depending on which endings you're going for. So with the Incubus, this thing is going to fly around and shoot us with electricity, just like it shot and basically killed Dahlia. Mind you, she was the one who was working so hard to bring this thing into the world. As for its design, it is essentially a depiction of, I guess, the devil. It's got a literal goat's head, multiple looking arms and pieces and wings and everything. It is grotesque, but it is also a really cool boss fight. For a game, again, made at this time in history, it is really, really cool that they were willing to make something like this. This is pushing certain envelopes that they didn't do back in the day that much, or at least not that often. So seeing this in a game is pretty crazy. But as for the fight, mostly using the rifle to shoot off as many bullets as possible is our best course of action. And eventually, if we do exactly that, we'll take it down. Alessa has handed us a child and then points us in the direction to run away. If we head in that direction, we can escape together with the baby, but also together with Sybil. But when Kaufman tries to get up and escape as well, he's not as lucky, because someone waits for him, someone beyond the grave. It's none else than Lisa. She comes up from the literal shadows, from hell itself, to pull him with her. She's not gonna let him escape with the insane things and evil deeds that he's committed. She takes him down. which is justified. Right as we're about to be crushed, Alessa steps in again and saves us using her powers. The last bit of her strength that she can use allows us to escape with the baby and of course with Sybil, making it out not just of this hellhole but also making our way out of Silent Hill. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the good ending. Actually, this is the best ending you can possibly get in the game, because now we've escaped together with Sybil, the child, and Harry, all alive. And that is good ending plus. But let's explain the other endings first before we move on to an explanation of the story and some other things I have to say. For the other good ending, the only thing that's different is that we would have killed Sybil, and what happens is that she doesn't show up at the ending. She's not there with Harry when he escapes. That's the only other good ending, but then we have the two bad endings, which is where things get a little bit more grim. For the first bad ending, basically you have to completely ignore the side quest in the resort area and also kill Sybil at the amusement park. Doing this, things play out a little bit differently. Instead of the incubus, it's the incubator that you fight, and then Cheryl reveals herself as Alessa once again, but that's besides the point. As she passes away, Harry just kind of loses it. But that's not really where the horrible aspect of this ending happens, is right at the end in the post-credit scene, which is where we see Harry in the car, passed out, basically dead. This would imply that everything he'd seen, everything that just happened, was merely in his mind the entire time. Yes, we did the le mind, it's in le mind, but genuinely, this, for the time and era, was kind of, well, again, for a video game, revolutionary. But I'm just gonna be honest, this is such a depressing conclusion. If this was the only ending you got when you played this game back in the day, wow, like, damn. I don't know how I would have handled it, because that is insane. And it also kind of makes sense, because if you remember earlier in the video, I did mention at one point where Harry himself even literally said it, wondering if all of this is just a dumb nightmare and he actually just died in that car accident and he's just living the last few seconds of his life in this purgatory of sorts. It's freaking cool, because playing this game and going back into it and just kind of nitpicking little things, you'll figure out so many things that are mentioned and foreshadowed and whatever else early on. This ending is brutal and it's terrifying, but there is still another bad ending, that being the bad ending plus. Bad ending plus just requires you to do basically the same things we've already done, except the only difference here is that we should keep Cheryl alive, but not get the vial found back in the resort area. Doing this, the things play out the same again. We take down the white goddess version of Alessa, she's defeated, but then in the end, Harry just does nothing. He just gets bitch slapped in the post-credit scene by Sybil, and that's it. And since it is a Silent Hill game, of course, we do have to have a joke ending of some kind, because the UFO ending started for the first time here. For this one, you had to do a series of things by going onto the rooftop of the Nightmare School during the Nightmare section, the Otherworld section of it, and you basically have to have a few items, and this is only possible in like New Game Plus. It's the only time you're gonna be able to do this, but if you've done all things correctly, a UFO ship is gonna stream down onto Earth, and of course, Harry's gonna ask them, have you seen my daughter, Cheryl? Not questioning the fact that they're aliens. I mean, he hasn't questioned any of the weird shit he's seen so far, so what's a few aliens to him? And they're then just gonna knock him out and take him to do some butt inspections of him up in space, just like they did to Eric Cartman. But I digress. This ending is just funny, goofy, it's there. What can I say? It's lovely. But now, let's talk about a few things. So first things first, the endings, which one is canon? Well, that's kind of a debate, to be honest with you. Some people would debate that the ending when Harry is dead and all of this was just a nightmare would be the true ending, but a lot of people would argue that it's actually the good ending plus, right? The one where you escape with, Sybil, the baby and whatnot. And this would be the most logical one because of who the baby is. We know that she turns into Heather Mason in Silent Hill 3, which is a essentially direct continuation, I guess you would say, of the plot, the story, the general idea, which is a game that I really want to play, one that I've yet to play, and one that a lot of people have generally recommended. Dude, do I need to make a video on that too? Either way, it's not important, but that's usually considered the ending that is most canon, and I think there's also a book that sort of re-emphasizes this, except the book isn't either considered fully canon, mainly because of the fact that it wasn't written by somebody involved with the development team, but somebody on the sideline. But I digress. Let's break down everything we've seen here, my thoughts and everything in between. First things first. The town of Silent Hill has some sort of strange aura to it, right? Some sort of strange power and some sort of occult thing going on within it. So a cult has formed inside of it, consisting of people like Dahlia and others. However, what ends up happening is that the town and also the people within it can sometimes have strange powers. That being Alessa, who's the daughter of Dahlia. Alessa has psychic powers, and Dahlia sees this for, well, what it is. It's a power. It's something she can use to bring their leader, their demon, the Samael, the devil, back or onto Earth. That's their goal. They're a cult. That's what they're gonna do. But in the process of doing this, she essentially tries to murder her own child by burning her to death inside of their family home. But doing this doesn't exactly go as planned, because in the process of it, she still lives, and what ends up happening is Alessa splits her soul in two. One part of the soul is Alessa, the burn victim, and she's basically just hiding her soul deep down, where it's just fighting things off, and the other half of her becomes Cheryl, which is the child, the baby that manifests and is then adopted by none else than Harry Mason and his wife, as she was sick. 7 years then pass, and guess what? Whippity whoopity, there is a connection between them still, and the part of her wants to come back. The part of her that Cheryl wants to return to become a whole. The two pieces want to connect back together, and this happens when Harry Mason is out on a ride together with her, and suddenly they crash and get stuck in the town of Silent Hill. The next thing and everything we see going forward is essentially all manifestations of Alessa's psyche. The things we see in the different places, like for example, if we're talking about the townspeople, right? Or not really the townspeople, but the people we see, like some of the monsters, they're depictions of how adults treated her, because she was mistreated. She was literally failed by everyone around her, practically speaking, so she sees them as the monsters they are. For example, other children. She was bullied in school. That's why she sees them as monsters, evil little cretins that would just mistreat her the entire time. But it doesn't end there. The dogs. She had a fear of dogs. That's why they appear as monsters. And again, all of these things all appear together and essentially connect back to the idea that what we are seeing is her nightmare, the nightmare she's living through, but she's seeping it out into the world, and we have to witness it ourselves. Together with the town already being a little bit strange and weird, and so Harry has to run around. He goes from place to place, he goes to the school, he goes to the hospital, and he eventually also meets people like Lisa. Lisa was the one who took care of Alessa. She's the one who had to change her bandages, who took care of her down there, but Lisa herself was already struggling. She was heavily under drugs from Dr. Kaufman. He was keeping her under them because that way he could control her, but also he can keep her addicted to them. We don't know if she died because of the drugs or because of other reasons. It's not exactly clear, but the main thing is that the Lisa we see in the game isn't really real. It's just a piece of her, like a part of her, the good side of her, essentially, which is what Alessa felt, right? Because if you think about everyone else that appears within the nightmare world is a monster. They're always some form of a monster. Lisa's the only one who isn't a monster because to Alessa, she took care of her. She was the one changing her bandages and not mistreating her. But we do know that, well, Lisa was still struggling with it in the background. Maybe that's why taking those drugs was the only thing that could soothe her mind so she could get through with it. Kaufman, on the other hand, he was the one providing the drugs and doing the entire drug trade. If the drug trade and the drugs themselves are in any way connected to the, this crazy shit we've seen, we don't really know. But the thing we do know is that he was involved with Dahlia to bring this demon to Earth. In the end, though, he ends up essentially regretting it and wanting to get away from it. But Lisa comes in and drags him down into hell with her because he is not allowed to escape his sins. And so, what we've seen is a culmination of all these things, right? Eventually, towards the end, we manage to save Alessa, or at least a part of her, the part of her that becomes Heather Mason. We take her and run away with Sybil, saving her life. And that's it. And there are so many moments in the game where you can see obviously connections and references to all these things ahead of time, right? Whether it's Alessa's nightmares appearing as different boss fights, like, for example, the split head could be an interpretation of her and a fear of hers of something she read from that book, the fantasy book that specifically described it. The moth monster, the giant moth boss, that is because, well, she loved moths. We saw it in her room that she had different butterflies and insects, and that would also explain why Lisa was complaining about insects always making their way into the room where she was taking care of Alessa, because Alessa loved insects. That's why some of the bosses and whatnot that appear are all insects looking like monsters or shaped like insects, and why all the nurses and doctors who maybe mistreated her and who were helping Dahlia and Dr. Kaufman, because keep in mind, Dr. Kaufman was in charge of this place. He was the head honcho, the man behind the entire operation, essentially. So when she saw those doctors that were in Lisa, or nurses that were in Lisa, she saw them all for what they were: parasites, merely just being there following orders and doing horrible things, even though they swore that their job would be to protect and heal people, but they didn't. So in the end, that's Silent Hill 1, and holy shit, I've played a few Silent Hill games at this point, but to be fair, I've played more bad games from Silent Hill than I've played good games. Unfortunately, I've yet to play 3 or 4, and that's on the to-do list because holy crap, this was a fantastic game. Like, from the bottom of my heart, I think it is a painful story. And it mainly comes down to the fact that we are talking about several people who are genuinely hurt. On one hand, you have Harry, who's doing all of this for a girl that, technically speaking, is not his actual biological daughter. She is just his stepdaughter, a child he found and took in to just have something that he could take care of with his wife as she was, well, dying and passing away. And he did all of this. He goes through literal hell to find her. Like, the entire time, this man does not stop looking for her, even if it leads down into the darkest of alleys. On the other hand, we have people like Sybil. If you think about it, all the bad endings end up with her dying, infected by a parasite, dying to the same gun that we were given by her. Remember, in the store, when we met her for the first time in the cafe, she specifically told us to be careful with the gun and to not point it at the wrong person. Well, in the end, we had to point it at her. It's poetic, but depressing. And then, of course, there's the other stuff in the story, like Lisa, who I think is probably one of the most tragic characters. Essentially turned into a junkie by Dr. Kaufman and then passes away so tragically, and a piece of her that remains is just terrified the entire time. And let's not forget about Alessa, a girl who was failed by every single adult in her life. Every single person around her failed her completely. She was taken advantage of and completely just destroyed, killed, ruined. Her childhood completely gone in favor of trying to appease her mother's delusions. It's terrifying, and what becomes of her in the end is also terrifying because she has to keep splitting her soul into pieces one by one, and that does not really seem ideal for anyone. It's a tragic story. It is a painful experience, but it's also one of the most beautiful, because at the end of the day, it is sort of weird, but in life, everything needs its ups and downs. If life was constantly on an upwards trajectory, if everything was perfect and there was no pain, then you would not truly be living life. For life to be worth living, there needs to be some pain for anything to be gained. And so, that is what I feel about Silent Hill 1. It's a fantastic game. I love this experience. And I really want to play Silent Hill 3 now. Also, a big thank you again to all the Patreons. Really appreciate you guys. Thank you for all the love and support, and I'll see you next time. And of course, lads, don't forget to use my Raid Shadow Legends link in the description or the QR code on the screen to get the insane bonuses and the 2 new epic champions.